We got some great news today for black voters, Democrats, and democracy, because the voting rights of black Alabamians mostly prevailed over the persistent bad faith attempts by Alabama Republicans to suppress them. And the results may be that this could allow Democrats to flip one of Alabama's congressional seats in 2024. But before we unpack all that, if you haven't yet, please hit that like, subscribe, and the alert bell. Maybe check out my Patreon. I'd appreciate the support. All right, folks, this is fantastic news. It's an ongoing development, or rather the latest development in a story that we've discussed off and on for the past few months. Here's a recap. In 2021, Alabama Republicans, who dominate the state, they have a terrible Republican governor, Kay Ivey, they redrew the voting maps in Alabama so that out of their 7 congressional districts, only one of them had a black majority, even though black people comprise more than a quarter, 27% of Alabama's population. Just a wild incongruence. It was so bad that a 3-judge federal panel struck those maps down and said, guys, this is racially gerrymandered. You need to do better. Alabama Republicans, of course, refused, and so they appealed to the United States Supreme Court. And even this regressively conservative Supreme Court said, no, guys, seriously, this is really bad. This is really racially gerrymandered. You probably violated the Voting Rights Act. So they struck the maps down and told Alabama Republicans that you all have to redraw the map with at least 2 black majority congressional districts. Alabama Republicans said, got it, we completely understand. And then they drew the maps again and openly defied the court. They only had 1 black majority district again. So that same 3-judge panel, which struck down the first map, the first set of maps, they struck down these 2, and they openly rebuked Alabama Republicans. They said, listen, not only did we strike this down, but you appealed to the Supreme Court. The court struck this down, and now you're openly defying the Supreme Court and tried to sign these maps into law, which they did. Governor Kay Ivey was like, listen, the Alabama legislature knows our state far better than distant Supreme Court justices. So they were pretty flagrantly violating the court order. So these maps were struck down again, and this time the 3-judge federal panel said, we're not giving you a chance to redo it. We're going to assign a special master to do it for you instead. Now, again, this is really good news. It's not, there's a bit of a caveat I'll throw in at the end, but here's the situation. As Axios reports, black voting power in Alabama is expanded. The new map punctuates a lengthy legal battle, which we just discussed, and puts Democrats in a position to pick up a House seat next November, okay? Let's see. This long and arduous battle over Alabama's congressional map deserves a solemn reminder that efforts to deny fair representation to black and minority voters are still alive and well, said Representative Terry Sewell, Alabama, the state's only black lawmaker. Here's where the caveat is. So the Supreme Court said at least 2 majority black districts, and instead the second one only has about a 49% black population, so it's not technically a majority. It's certainly higher than what the next best option was under the previous set of maps. So again, it's an improvement, but it still doesn't really meet the letter of what the United States Supreme Court wanted. So the situation is this. I don't know what comes of this at this point. I don't know if it's possible to appeal these maps even further, because I imagine you would at least have legal standing to do so. Like, listen, the court said at least 2. You gave us almost 2. But even if worst case scenario, that doesn't happen, this is at least an improvement. And this is at the very least a rejection of what Alabama Republicans attempted to do by artificially suppressing and shrinking the black vote, when again, black Alabamians comprise more than a quarter, 27% of Alabama's population. So clearly there still needs to be more work done. But the upshot is that it was an expansion, much better than the Republicans intended to give, and were in effect forced to give because the decision was taken out of their hands. And it does put Democrats in a better position to pick up a House seat in the 2024 election. So good news, hopefully not the end. Hopefully we'll get even better news. But if not, if the story does end here, it's a happier ending than what Republicans intended.